Searching the internet, looking to network and hitting the pavement? We've done the work to help you get ready for your next job. We've got the experts and the latest tips, and we got you. This is Job Hunt LA. Hi, and welcome to Job Hunt LA. I'm career guy Darrell Gurney. For the next 30 minutes, we're going to help you not only find and capture a new job, but also discover ways to find meaning and purpose in your career and advance in your career. So joining us today is Steve Abrams. Steve is the co-founder of Career Day. Thanks for joining us, Steve. Let's just jump right in. So, Steve, you have had a great career in production in the entertainment industry, which is all about finding and keeping jobs. You also have your master's in education. What really fascinates me is for the last 5.5 years, you've been the co-founder of Career Day. Tell us a little bit about Career Day, first off.
What we do is we focus on helping those students who are not thinking about going on to a 4-year college, but kids who want to get right into the workforce. And we are connecting them with employers who are desperate for people just like them. We focus sort of on the CTE pathways. So we go to high schools, we take employers to the high schools where they can meet the students who are actively looking for work. And it's even great for kids who are going to school after, because a lot of them are working and they need great jobs, and it can help align them with jobs that are working in their majors.
So first off, you're providing a huge service, it sounds like, to high school students in moving on, whether they're going to go to college and work while they're in college, or they're just going to not go to college and choose to go to work. I noticed something on your website that said 34% of high schoolers actually choose to not go to further education. One question I had, is that higher or lower than it was 20 years ago? I mean, are more students just going into the workforce now than before?
Yeah, absolutely. The college paradigm is absolutely changing all over the country. An even crazier statistic is that in the last 2 years, almost 2/3 of young men who graduate from high school don't go on to college, which has skewed the college population in favor of young women to almost 54 to 55%. So it's a trend. And it just, people are realizing that, coming out of college with a mountain of debt and limited career opportunities is not a recipe for success.
So tell me this then, what do you tell high schoolers who are making that choice? What are the tips that you are offering them?
Well, the educational landscape is changing, Darrell, and most high schools now, based on federal mandates and state mandates, are focusing on the career and technical education pathways. So a lot of students are able to sort of find what interests them earlier. So what we're telling them is that there are incredible opportunities for them in many different fields that they just don't know about. And we're helping to introduce them to whatever opportunity fits not just their career and technical education pathway, but their skills and their values.
Yeah, I'm glad you spelled that out. I was wondering what CTE was, so now you've told me. I don't have to ask. So tell me then, what is your process? How do you go about making this connection? Because I know when I was in high school, I know when my son was in high school, I mean, I was going to go on to college, but there's not a whole lot of information or guidance. How do you even get them into this process?
Well, it's funny you say that, Darrell, because that's the genesis of what we're doing, is the fact that we would go to career fairs for other endeavors and find out that students just were not being educated not just in what careers are out there, but in how to find them and how to write a resume or go on an interview. And those are important skills. So our model is to go through look at the high schools, and we find the high schools in the area of of a specific employer, and we look for those high schools that are focused on the career and technical education pathways that fit that employer. And then we bring that employer to the high school. So that way the kids are hearing it directly from the person they're going to be working for.
So it sounds like you're kind of like the connector here. Sounds like the employers on their own have not been able to bridge that gap. Obviously, the young students without the guidance haven't been able to bridge the gap. What's the solution that you're providing for both ends of the spectrum there, the employer and the students?
Well, Darrell, I don't know if you remember being 18. I barely remember it at this point. But when I graduated high
I won't
school,
say it
yeah, I
like
just,
that.
I barely knew what I was doing, right? I mean, the thought of leaving high school, excuse me, and finding a job would have been incredibly daunting. And it was daunting. It was daunting for me when I got out of college. So we want to remove that uh, blockage from their lives. We want to make it easier for them. And the employer side, they don't have the manpower or the resources to really create an effective outreach program for their company. So we just do it for them. So we are doing what they had wanted to do and what they talk about in their meetings, but they can't do.
Well, tell me what you do, because, I remember even in high school and even when my son was in high school, there was career day, where
Mm-hmm.
I guess parents would come and talk about what they do and things like that. That's a certain form of education, but it looks like y'all get way more in depth than this. What's your process like?
Well, the process, we start with the client, we start with the company that is looking for entry level employees, and we come up with a plan based on what those positions are and what that career trajectory would look like. Then we start reaching out to high schools within 20 miles or so of that particular plant or their company, and we start to investigate what type of students do they have, what kind of CTE programs do they have, do they have students that are looking to go into the workforce. Most guidance counselors will tell you, oh, we have 95% of our students who go to college, but that's not really accurate. And if a lot of kids who do go to college, over half the kids who do go to college are out of college before the end of the second semester. So we then start investigating with these counselors, and then we start handing out information to students, letting them know the careers that are available to them, and then we start setting up speaking engagements. And what we do is we bring the worker, the person who's actually doing the job, we bring that person into the school and let them talk to the students directly and answer questions. Then when that's finished, when a student shows interest, they come through our portal. They take an assessment that uh, kind of checks their skills, their values, and their abilities and their personality. And then if they fit the criteria, then they move on to an interview. And the great part about that is that both the student and the employer know going in that they're a person who's a good fit.
Tell me, how do you even start with 18-year-olds, let's just say on average 18-year-old graduating high school? How do you even start with them about resumes, about interviewing? What are the tips? How do you prepare them for that process, whether it's going to be with that particular company or just how to learn in general, how to take that on?
Right. That's a great question, Darrell. And that is something that we work very hard with because it's hard to be responsible when you're 18, when you've just graduated from high school. You're your feeling is, I want to go out there, I want to, play around, I want to party. I'm not necessarily tied into the idea of what it takes to get this job, but they know that they need to get to work. So we have a process where we connect with them when they come into our portal, and we get them to understand this is what you need to do. And in a way, you almost have to treat it almost like in a drill sergeant type of way, where you say, here are the steps. These are the steps you need to follow. And if you follow them, then there's a possibility that you'll have great success. And it starts with, here's a resume. Here's where you can find resume templates. Here's where you can find ways to write a resume. I think the thing that is most difficult for young people is understanding that, being the captain of the football team is actually a great thing to have on your resume. It shows responsibility, leadership. It shows the ability to follow orders. They don't understand that. And so we help them understand that the things they did in school and the things they did as volunteers and all the other stuff actually looks great on a resume.
So tell me this. So we're talking about the resume, we're talking about applying. The next stage for a young person is interviewing. I
Mm-hmm.
think I was a little cocky when I was 18-year-old, but at the same time, in the face of an adult, I probably got mush mouth. What advice do you have for young people when it comes to like doing initial interviews and getting used to that and good at that?
Yeah, that's the probably the hardest part of the entire process. We just talk to them about being themselves, being honest, being open, not worrying about being perfect, and the idea of being the smartest guy in the room. It's important for young men and young women to ask questions and to open themselves up to just giving straight answers. Be yourself. I mean, the hardest part is helping them to understand that even if they go in and give the perfect interview, they might not get the job. And that disappointment is hard to handle at that age. So that's another thing that we work with them on, is just understanding that you might have to do 5 interviews to get the perfect job, but it'll come eventually.
Steve, this is all great. I want you to stay right where you are. We're going to continue this conversation after a few helpful tips. Once again, we're talking with Steve Abrams, the co-founder of Career Day. So, Steve, this is all fascinating in terms of what you're providing and this advice that you're giving to students. What's the track record like? How has this gone, and what have been some success stories that have come out of your work with putting high schoolers together with organizations?
Oh, it's been an amazing journey so far. I mean, it's a great lesson in entrepreneurialism, because we've had to pivot twice over the course of the 5.5 years, and we landed on this particular model about a little over a year ago, and it really took off. We've had several clients now. We've placed a couple of students. One of them was at a dairy out in City of Industry, And this person was such a great candidate, actually had 3 job offers on top of the one that he got from us. Um, we are talking to a lot of different organizations. Labor unions have been jumping on board. Everybody, the school counselors love it. I've yet to run into anybody who has said, "Yeah, I don't really see a need for that." Ever since Amy Klobuchar in the 2016 debate said we need less MBAs and more plumbers, this idea has really taken off.
Wow, I can really hear the service y'all are providing just by being that educational place there for these students. And as they go through your program, or it sounds like even they got lots of things that start to cook for them outside of your program because of what you're providing and the education. I want to pivot a little bit now. I'd like to ask about, so let's say these high schoolers do land. Uh, Talk a little bit about, because I think I saw another statistic on your website that said most young people will stay an average of 9 months. Now, for someone to actually have a career, they kind of need to stick around. They kind of need to advance, things like that. How how is that challenge met by either your organization,
Mm.
or what advice do you have for young people or employers about keeping them on?
Right, Darrell. Well, we do 2 things in relation to that. Uh, the the great thing about the career and technical education pathways and finding students who are in specific CTE pathways. So if we have a client who's a manufacturing company and we go to a high school that has a manufacturing CTE pathway program, then you know that the student who is coming out of that program is interested in the work that's going on at that company. So one of the reasons why people stay for such a short period of time is they're like, "Oh, well, this pays really well. I think I'll take it." And then they realize that they're working in the freezing cold, bending metal. And they're like, "Gee, I wasn't expecting this. I'm out of here." But if you have someone from the right CTE pathway, they already know what to expect. The second thing we do is when we bring that worker who is already doing that job in front of the students, they're getting a really clear picture of what the work is. So everybody's eyes are wide open when they walk into that first day of work. And if you have a good fit and you have someone that's interested in what the work is, they're going to stay. And then we also let them know that there's a very strong career path, upward career path if they stay and put in the work at this company.
So it sounds like your process then helps ensure a stickiness for the young person. Are there particular challenges that the employers have to deal with when they're bringing in young people who are kind of maybe fresh to the workforce, even if they have been kind of CTE qualified?
Right. Well, the most people leave a job. The statistic I read was that 8 out of 10 people who leave a job say they're leaving because of the manager. It's not because of the work. It's not because of the company, but it's because of the person who's their direct supervisor. So that type of situation is compounded by somebody who's right out of high school. That person is not going to really have the experience or the wherewithal to be able to handle somebody who is a tough supervisor or they don't get along with. So that's really the biggest problem. The rest of it is, the other one is more money. A lot of students will come in, a lot of people, and but again, it's the same problems you have with people who are 18 or 28 or 48, right? They take a job and then 6 months later, somebody offers them a job with more money and they're going to take it. But from the standpoint of keeping those people happy, when those people come into you pre-qualified and they come into you with an understanding, they're going to stay. Now, of course, we haven't been around long enough to really have a full, statistical representation of what that is. But from what we're seeing, the people who are taking the jobs are very happy to get started.
Yeah, and it sounds like if the companies are partnering with you and they're investing in your service, they obviously would want to nurture and make sure that they provide, the best environment or whatever that they can. But like you said, you can't always tell who someone's boss is going to be. What advice, and again, you're speaking from your career that has many years, underneath it, but in your work with these young people, what advice would you offer for advancement? Like, how does one advance? How does one, make a place for themselves in an organization?
Well, I think I've been on in many different worlds. The entertainment industry, it's really about personalities and networking. In some of the other industries that I've been in, there's also the sort of mastery or the becoming technically adept at whatever it is your job is. And I think it really comes down to making yourself indispensable, making you that person that in your boss's mind, it's like, I really couldn't see doing this job without Darrell. Like, he has become so good at what he does. He has such a great attitude that if I had to lay off every other person in this department, the one person I would want to keep would be Darrell.
Well, hopefully my producer feels that way. Um, but so tell me then, in terms of someone, well, one thing I want to hit on though is you talked about networking, because in the entertainment
Hmm.
industry, that's like the golden key, right? A lot of people coming out of
Yeah.
high school, and again, they're good at social media and they're, bold and everything there, but sometimes when it comes to interacting with people, there might be, some more advancement to get used to interacting with people. Talk a little bit about what should young people actually begin to learn and know about networking.
The first thing is put your phone down and leave it down and go out in the world, join organizations, join clubs, go to coffee shops, get out there and have conversations with people. I think it's something that needs to happen early and often. I think that trying to create a connection based on your love of crazy TikTok videos is not going to get you very far. You have to be able to, you need to learn how to ask questions and listen. And that is the single biggest part of networking that I think today's young people are not learning.
Yeah, I agree. I even speak to MBA programs about that because they're mostly still young as well. What is it that
Mhm.
one gains out of that, though? If you can, like, if a young person's watching this right now and they hear go talk to people and ask questions, how is that actually impacting their career?
The smartest guy in the room, the smartest girl in the room, in my experience, is not the one who's doing the most talking, but doing the most listening. And being able to listen, being able to collate what you're hearing in your mind and uh, turn that into ideas and solutions for problems is a critical attribute to have. And it's a great part of networking because when you're talking to people and you're discussing different situations, being able to take in what they're saying and help them find solutions makes you indispensable.
Got it. So it's really the code word here is be indispensable, both in your work that you're currently doing, as well as become indispensable with the people around you. Um, so, t- what would we've got about a minute left. I want to kind of give you an opportunity. Number one, to just share kind of your final golden pieces of wisdom, as well as make sure you
Mm-hmm.
tell us the website where if people would like to find out more about Career Day.
Well, thanks, Joe. This has been great, by the way. I really appreciate you inviting me to come on the show. Uh, I think if I were going to say one thing uh, to a young person, it's have courage, take the leap, and don't be afraid to follow what your heart is telling you in this particular moment. It's okay not to go to college. It's okay to go find a job. It's okay to strive and to push yourself. And just take your time and let the job grow on you. So many people get into work and they do 6 months or they do the 9 months and they don't really let themselves settle in. So I think that would be the greatest advice I would have for a young person. And, to be open to whatever the possibilities are. And as far as Career Day, we'd love to hear from students and employers. And you can find us at www.careerday.me.
ME, we'll remember that because it's all about me. That's definitely what the students
Career Day
want to hear.
me.
Thank you, Steve. Really
Yep.
appreciate your time today. Thanks for being of service to students and employers and doing the work that y'all are doing.
Thanks, Darrell. You too.
Thanks for watching Job Hunt LA. I'm career guy Darrell Gurney.